special Brewbound live streaming event as part of our ongoing coverage of how the beer industry is reacting and innovating during the COVID-19 pandemic. My name is Justin Kendall, and I am the editor of Brewbound. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Jess Infante. Jess, thanks for joining us.
No problem. Nice to be here.
It's always nice to have you here. So this is the first of what we hope to be mini live streamed strategy sessions and temperature checks on what's happening out in the field and on the front lines of the beer business. So we're calling this Brewbound Frontlines. We're hopefully going to do this every Thursday for the foreseeable future. So for our first discussion, we brought together representatives from 3 beer companies in states that have not yet enacted statewide stay-at-home orders, although in some cities and counties in those states, there are directives. So we want to know what it's like to operate in those states, what they're doing to keep their people safe. We're going to find out. So joining us today are Nick Servine, Corporate Accounts Manager for Exile Brewing Company in Des Moines, Iowa. Thanks for joining us, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
We've also got Angie Pelton. She's the owner of Six Shooter Hospitality in North Dakota. They operate Stonehome Brew Pub locations in Bismarck and Watford City, as well as Outlaws Bar and Grill locations in Walford City and Williston, among other on-premise outlets throughout the state. Angie, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
And finally, we've got Sean Mossman. He's the Director of Sales and Marketing for Coop Ale Works in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Sean, thank you for joining us.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, good. Yeah, thanks.
Nice plug for that F5, I think. So I appreciate you all taking time out of your busy schedules to join us. I know it's crazy out there. So let's just dig in here. I want to know, can each of you describe your respective business models for people who might not be familiar with your companies? What's your on versus on-premise sales? What's the difference there? How big of a presence do you have in grocery? I'll start with Nick.
Yeah, so Exile Brewing Company, we're a 50-50 split between what we do at the brewery and distribution. And then from there, the further breakdown is going to be pretty much a 50-50 split between on and off premise. So as you can imagine, we were affected greatly when pretty much overnight restaurants shut down, on premise was taken away, as well as our brew pub. So we've been dealing with that fallout a little bit. In terms of business philosophy and kind of our approach to distribution I think is kind of what saved us. So we're a brand that's kind of like very, very committed to our core flagship series, quality first. Like we're really dedicated to that. And that kind of was the foundation for our success now, because we were very, very focused on, filling distribution gaps, filling gaps in grocery chains. And so that was something that we had already been working on for about a year. And so with this massive shift to off premise, and with our team's ability to adapt to that and really shift all of our production to exclusively bottles and cans, we've been able to navigate, this difficult time. And the name of the game right now is avoiding out of stocks on the shelf, and and the logistics that go into that and the ripple that it causes throughout the supply chain. Our team's done a really, really good job of kind of adapting our forecasting models to be able to make sure we don't have empty shelves out there.
Sean, break down Coop's business for us.
Sure. Sorry, hold on a second. We're pretty cheesy, self-serving brewery. No, we're round numbers. We're roughly 70% distributed package, roughly 25% distributed draft, and only roughly 5% own premise at the brewery. Not many people know, but Oklahoma had some pretty archaic laws until a couple of years ago, when we worked with the state, the Brewers Association and distributors worked with the state to modernize those laws. And so, like, for instance, we didn't have tap rooms until 3 years ago. And so that really, we built our business in the first 8 years we were in business, really around distributed beer, almost exclusively around distributed beer, obviously, and built out 6 states of distribution, but we're primarily distributed beer in Oklahoma. As with everybody else that is in kind of a 70-30 split or an 80-20 split, we faced the loss of about 30% of top line revenue almost in one day, really within 1 week. We kind of we'll go through kind of our timeline of how we made decisions and what we did before. The big municipalities here in Oklahoma did shelter in place orders, but we really did lose about 30% top line in one day. Really catastrophic. We're very fortunate to have a pretty robust grocery and liquor store business through one single distributor in Oklahoma, so it makes the moving parts pretty easy for us. We're lined up about 60% grocery and convenience and about 40% liquor. Liquor's still our biggest channel by far. And we're up in those channels a little bit to offset the losses in draft, but still really the losses are catastrophic, and we're holding on here.
Angie, break down Six Shooters business for us, please.
Absolutely. So Six Shooters is a hospitality group that's in Western North Dakota and Eastern Montana. We operate restaurants and brew pubs. Our brew pub in Watford City is the home of Stone Home Brewing. And then there's also a location in Bismarck, North Dakota too. The amount, I would say that we're 90% we sell our beer at Stone Home Brew Pub. 10% goes out to our other locations in the state and a few other restaurants throughout our area. So not being able to have guests come into the restaurants on a daily basis to consume a pint with us has definitely hit us hard. Since shelter, not shelter in place, but since our business were not allowed to have people inside to eat and drink in the restaurants, we've already seen an 86% decrease in sales over the last 4 weeks compared to what we were doing. So definitely been a huge hit on us. The amount of beer that we were producing and enjoying on a weekly basis has come to a streaking halt.
Wow. So although stay-at-home orders haven't been issued in all of your states, what different directives have been issued? And then what measures have all of you guys taken to adapt to that? Angie, let's stick with you. What are you guys doing differently?
Yeah, so right now, all that we can do is takeout of food and delivery of food in my city of Watford City and also of Williston. Bismarck is not offering delivery of beer. Fargo, Grand Forks, Minot are cities that are allowing people to deliver food. So deliver alcohol, I'm sorry. So right now, everyone can either just come through the drive-through or pick up or get delivered to us. So on our last payroll, our payroll numbers went from 182 people to 29 people. So just the amount of people that we're using to get this product out, of course, is a large decrease there too.
That's really different. Sean, what are you guys doing differently?
Well, we kind of sit in a weird spot here at kind of the almost ground zero of really the public awareness of COVID. Like, we were here on March 11th out to dinner watching a Thunder game on TV, and things kind of went haywire in the arena. We all found out Rudy Gobert had COVID, and within the very next day we closed down our tap room even before orders from anybody. Basically, because as I said earlier, we're about 95% distributed product and 70% distributed package. So in an attempt to kind of control the environment and make sure that our people were safe and we were able to produce product, we went ahead and shut down the tap room early and caught quite a bit of flack for that. But I think we did obviously the right thing. The very next day on Friday, we work from home for non-essential. We've come to this point now. We've actually got redundant operations in the back with all staff. So packaging, brewing, cellar, lab, distribution, the whole 9 yards. We've got 2 fully functional teams that are working split shifts. So if one person on a team gets sick and we have to quarantine, we've got a second team that's completely clean and can sanitize. So we've sort of done some of those things really behind the scenes just to frantically protect that 70% of distributed package business. We moved all of our draft packaging away about a week before the restaurants closed here. And so while we don't have a statewide initiative here, on March 16th, which is obviously a month anniversary today, our restaurants in our major municipalities, Tulsa, Oklahoma City, Norman, Stillwater, were the first to have their mayors issue kind of almost shelter in place, stronger language than the governor's kind of suggested stay-at-home language before. And so we've been functionally operating the same way that Boston or New York is for the last month.
Wow, that's quite a long time. Nick, how about you guys?
Yeah, I want to echo a lot of those same sentiments. Sean. So on March 12th, that's when they ordered a shutdown for schools and universities. And that was the time in which we really evaluated our business and decided that we needed to make some changes. On March 17th was when Governor Reynolds issued the directive and business closures. So kind of some of the things that changed for us starting on March 12th. And thereafter was, we moved our restaurant operations to curbside pickup. We started delivering beer. We do have access to things like Uber Eats, which is helping with, food volume or, food sales. And then the big change has come from the production side and how we've segregated our brewery to keep everyone safe. So, the brew pub space is only for brew pub employees. The brewery space, the brew house and the cellar is only for those employees as well. And then in the upstairs of our brewery is where we have our laboratory and our packaging lines. And so there's been a very hard separation and boundary set as to where employees can move throughout the entire brewery. So we're still operating, the restaurant through curbside, still operating the brewery through package production. And that's kind of how we shifted there.
I'd like to remind our viewers, if you have questions for these guys, fire them away. We have a text line for that. The number is 617-336-8560. That number again is 617-336-8560. Text away. We'll ask your questions. There was big news today. The SBA program is running out of money, according to reports, or out of money, I guess, as it is right now, as far as payroll protection and the other program. I want to know, Angie, did Six Shooter apply for any of these government assistance programs, and what was your experience like?
The experience has definitely been interesting. I think everybody was so concerned that we would run out of money, which it sounds like is happening. So that first night, I know people could start applying on the 3rd, that Friday. I know April 2nd, Thursday, was trying to get all of our ducks in a row, get all of our paperwork together so we could submit quickly, because it sounded like first come, first serve. So we work with a great bank and we were able to do that. We just found out though last Friday, so the 10th. So it took a week to find out that we were approved and were able to get an approval number. So there was definitely a whole week of not knowing what was going to happen. We employ, like I said, a large number of people that we want to make sure we have jobs for when we all are ready to go back to work. So that was a very stressful time for us. We still have not received loan docs to sign. My understanding is after you received the approval that you have, it's about 10 days where you'll be able to accept that loan and get your funds. So we're still waiting on that. I know that it's been stressful and there's not as much information out there on the, on the side of, when will this money be available and how quickly. And I know there's definitely some questions for like my group in North Dakota. We cannot open back up full time until May 1st. So if I receive these funds next week, I have to, try to hire back as many people as I possibly can to use 75% of those funds towards payroll. So there's still a lot of questions to be answered, but overall, thankful for it and looking forward to get back into work full time.
Sean, did you guys attempt to get in on this?
Yeah, we did. I mean, we had, lost in the my timeline discussion about decisions that we had to make along the way. We did have to furlough 4 employees, 4 of the 30, about a week or 2 into kind of closing down the tap room and doing the work from home thing. And that was a brutal day. It was a brutal week leading up into the conversations. It was a brutal day. We were watching the CARES Act closely. We waited until CARES Act passed and was signed by the president, so we knew that $600 stimulus kicker every week would be there to help those folks stay as whole as possible. So we were watching that, and we immediately got in line for PPP so that we could make sure that we had the revenue streams available to us to keep the rest of the staff up and working. And so we're grateful to have that. We haven't been funded yet. We have had our loan approved, and we're waiting for funding. On a personal note, my wife, who runs a pie shop here in Oklahoma City, she got her funding on Monday. One of the other board members of the trade association, the Brewers Guild here in Oklahoma that I serve with, he got his funded on Monday. So we're hearing about funds from some really critically hard hit brewery members that are starting to show up in accounts. I know they're really grateful for that because There are much smaller brewers than us with less time in the market that rely way more heavily on their own premise, their tap room, and that makes sense in where they are in their business life cycle. And they got hit terribly hard, and it was sort of a really crushing couple of weeks of uncertainty for a lot of those folks. And so I think that kind of in line with Angie's experience, I would expect.
So in addition to the PPP, what else do small businesses like yours need right now? What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, so just a little bit of breathing room, I think, is going to be the most helpful thing. I know that we applied for a PPP loan, but that's not a decision-making process I'm a part of, so I can't really speak too much more to that. But in terms of what we need, community support has been really huge. Our brand has, our consumers have really rallied around our brand. And the Iowa beer community is really awesome, very amazing. And so just that support and that knowing that people are out there and hitting the shelves hard, bringing our beer home, support us on social media, that's been a ton for us. And in terms of what businesses need, I think that, developing really good plans for avoiding out of stocks for distribution is the number one key there.
Good point. Good point. Angie, what about you guys? What else would help you right now?
I think he hit the nail on the head there. I mean, we need support from our communities. We need people getting the takeout, the delivery if they can. And, when you're coming in too, also help tipping those servers. Those are the people that have been taking care of you for many years or however it has been, and they're kind of part of your family. So anything you can do to help them out is grateful. Definitely sharing things on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I mean, the more you're out there, everyone's looking at their phones all day nowadays. So any more information you can get about your brand out there, I think is helpful.
That's really smart. What do you think, Sean?
I mean, I think we need, we need restaurants. We need restaurants and bars operating as quickly as we possibly can. And so if I sound too political in this, I apologize. But I think we need to, I don't think we need to be forced back into groups any faster than than doctors and the scientists tell us we need. We need our restaurants and tap rooms open as quickly as possible. And we not only need them open, we need the consumer to have confidence that they can sit 10 feet away from a stranger in a restaurant and a bar and be healthy. And so, I think we all want the government to just do things right and to get us back and operating at full speed as fast as we can. And I don't think that means rushing to judgment, for what it's worth.
You mentioned coming back once things are safe. What's the mood like in your respective states right now? Because Jess and I are out in the Northeast. We're very close to the epicenter of New York City, and I've lived in Iowa, I've lived in Kansas City, and my experience in living in those states when something big is happening in a state like California or New York is always feeling like that's so far away, But are consumers in your states taking this seriously? Do you get the sense that there's fear? I'll stick with you, Sean.
Yeah, I do. I do think that consumers are taking it seriously. One of the things that we did as a response from what we call the front of the house side, the marketing and sales team at our brewery, is we repurposed and reassigned our on-premise staff. We have 3 reps for on-premise, 3 for off in Tulsa and Oklahoma City. We reassigned that staff over to off-premise, really basically routes to retailers, doing pull-ups and backstock. And I say that because really about 2 weeks in, there was a lot of anxiety. And once people started to sort of normalize wearing masks and gloves and protective equipment out in the marketplace, everybody started to feel a lot more comfortable on my team. At least they expressed to me that they were feeling a lot more comfortable about what they were doing. And so, we were happy that our team adopted gloves and masks very early on. And, even Department of Homeland Security, essential business badges, so that the store staff felt comfortable.
I think Sean froze there. Nick, what's the climate like right now in Iowa?
You know, things are getting better. I think that at the beginning, when we didn't really know what was going on, there was a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety surrounding how to behave and how to act, and what's going to happen, and that sense of dread was kind of hanging over everyone's head. Uh, One of the things that I personally have been doing a ton of since since everything shut down. Off premise has been out of control, busy. So I've been in the market every single day, stocking shelves, helping keeping beer available to our consumers. And I've really seen kind of the organic change that's happened. People are getting more comfortable again because of things like the masks and the gloves, all these precautions, all this sanitizing, all this wiping down everything. It's becoming more normal now, whereas at the beginning it was very, very odd and it was scary. Now it's becoming normal, and so there's once you get that that sense of normalcy back into the daily routine, people start to relax a little bit. I wouldn't say that fear is the right word. Caution is definitely something that people are exercising. From what I've seen, people are very, very respective of the social distancing guidelines. A lot of our grocery chains are doing one in, one out, where they're actually holding lines. Those lines have people 6 feet apart. Even within the stores, they have directions on how to move through the space with one-way arrows. And so there's a lot of things that are kind of popping up that are helping kind of guide this crisis.
Angie, what's the climate like in North Dakota?
North Dakota was one of the last states to be affected by the COVID-19. So we got to kind of sit back and see what the rest of the country was doing. And I think that's benefited us as a whole. We've been able to see what other states have done, and been able to have more data than anybody else, too. So, our governor likes to call it North Dakota smart. People are definitely still venturing out with the guidelines of staying 6 feet apart, no longer, not gathering in groups of more than 10, wearing face masks, or sanitizing gloves and those kind of things. So definitely that fact over fear here in North Dakota, from what I'm seeing, is we're taking personal responsibility for ourselves and our families. And I think that's one thing that's been a positive in our state, that we're able to take responsibilities of ourselves and make sure that we're taking care of the ones around us. And people are definitely out and about, walking and going, giving space at the grocery stores and giving space when they do pick up their food. So that's what I'm seeing is, more of that fact over fear here.
That's good to hear. I know my town here in Massachusetts recently ruled that everybody needs to wear a mask when you go into stores that are still open. And that just happened the other day. So I assume directives like that will probably make their way out to the rest of the country too. But operating in states where there aren't things like that happening right now, what are you guys doing to ensure the safety of your workforce? Sean, what are you guys doing for the Coop team?
Yeah, so I don't know where I kind of cut off on the computer glitch a little bit ago, but our sales and marketing team are wearing masks and gloves and identification badges into all stores. Following social distancing. We're obviously keeping everybody away from the brewery. I'm the only person designated that can go to the brewery to pick up point of sales material or merchandise or sample beer or anything like that. So, we're taking some pretty, definitive precautions to both protect the people that are out in the market working, but also the guys that are back at the brewery, brewing, packaging, running the cellar, running the lab, to make sure that they're not exposed to anything that maybe we might bring from the outside as asymptomatic.
Nick, what about you guys?
Yeah, I touched on it a little bit earlier. So our brewery is very heavily segregated right now. Brew pub is restricted and confined to the brew pub. Same with the brew house, cellar team, packaging team, and also the laboratory team. One of the things I was talking to the production manager about yesterday that she told me that they were doing right when they get there is disinfecting everything. They're taking tons of precautions, like PPE. Is about standard at this point, but they're also cleaning things like hats and phones with isopropyl alcohol. And so just the level of sanitation on everything, personal items, has gone way up. So that's kind of what they're doing at the brewery. As far as in the market, we have pretty strict protocols as to how our salesmen can move through the market, and what they're doing while they're out there. So obviously observing social distancing standards. But not only that, but wearing masks, wearing gloves. And then as soon as we get home, we've been instructed to, take off all of our outside clothing that had been out in the stores, put it right in the washing machine, wash our hands right away. And so we're just taking every precaution that we can while at the same time supporting, the retail level and our distributors as well.
How many people are on the Exile team?
So on the brewery side, we're right around 40. And then I don't have a great count on how many, servers and bartenders we had.
Well, then Angie, what are you guys doing for the staff? I know you've set up curbside and delivery and stuff like that to minimize in-person contact, but what else are you doing?
Yeah, so first, right away, we contacted the North Dakota Department of Health too, just to see if there was any new guidelines, because we are, producing food and beer, and business as usual. Obviously, they asked us to be even more diligent with our normal sanitizing in the kitchen and in the brewery. We've also too in our communities had great people make masks, so all of our stores have been given masks from people within the community. So we've been giving them to use while they're having contact with other people. Of course, sanitation. Through our food vendors, getting in extra solutions for that to make sure that we're wiping down credit cards, wiping down pens, wiping down our micros machines, so that way people aren't cross-contaminating there. And then same thing, just personal hygiene, making sure if somebody isn't feeling well that they're not coming to work. And we've had a few people too that have traveled, and we said to them, you're not allowed, you have to do the 2-week self-quarantine before you're able to come back to work. So just putting those into place to make sure that we're not becoming part of the problem but more of the solution.
We've got an audience question here. What are you guys seeing in terms of direct to consumer via delivery or takeaway / curbside sales? Is this something that breweries, tap rooms, and pubs will be able to hang on to post COVID-19? I'll start with you, Sean. What are you guys seeing?
So from our personal brewery's perspective, we are not offering curbside and we're not offering delivery. Again, another one of those where the relative tap room revenue that we generate compared to our production distribution business is so low that we've decided basically to shut it down and protect that production distribution business. So we've chosen not to, but I also am the treasurer of the Craft Brewers Association of Oklahoma. We work really closely with our regulators here. We were able to get to convince them to put the curbside and delivery in, not just for restaurants but for breweries, have a couple of days in advance of the directives coming out, and so pretty progressive on their side to kind of get out in front of that, and really more for the sake of helping restaurants and tap rooms kind of liquidate the draft beer that they had on or the packaged beer that they had in. Not all restaurants have stayed open for curbside and delivery. The vast majority of them kind of just went through that process for a couple of weeks to try to liquidate as much as they could, and then have closed down temporarily. Hopefully they'll all come back, but we'll see. But also, we know that a lot of our breweries that are in the association, they tried the delivery model and it just didn't seem to be working very well for them. And so some are still delivering, but not very many are delivering. And I'm glad we got the opportunity to kind of test that out right now. But just sort of the cost effectiveness of that relative to the amount of revenue, we're hearing that it just wasn't great for our member breweries, not all, but most of our member breweries. But some are doing some pretty robust curbside business, and I'm super happy for those that were very reliant on tap room and the way that their curbside business is going.
Nick, how's that playing out in Iowa?
Yeah, so our curbside and our beer delivery is going well. So we're going to continue doing that with a lot of the precautions that, Angie said that they're taking with their restaurants. As far as are we going to continue to do this post C-19? Who knows? I mean, that's one of those things that we'll really have to evaluate when we get there, cross that bridge, when we get there, and see if it makes sense for us to continue providing those services as a brewery.
Angie, how are things working out for you guys in that regard?
So in the past, we were able to do growler fills and sell 4-packs out of the brewery. We also, too, at some of our locations, were able to have off sale. So this is something that is, that's not new to us. It's definitely been a positive, or, when people, I would say, are drinking a little bit more than usual. So being able to pick up their food and their 4-pack of beer has definitely been a benefit to us on that side of it. And yeah, we'll continue to do that. I know some of the cities in North Dakota are allowing the delivery. And I have heard of some feedback. I'm also the president of the North Dakota Brewers Guild, so I do try to communicate with them as what's working for them and what's not working for them. And the ones that are delivering, some of them it's working great for. Other ones saying that people are still, prefer to come to the brewery and pick it up instead of have it delivered. So kind of a mixed bag there.
Angie, what else has been going on with the Guild? How is the Guild being affected by all of this?
So the biggest thing right now is our biggest fundraiser is in June. It's our Underbrew Skies that we hold in Fargo, North Dakota. And this will be our 5th year doing it. And it's really caught off steam the last couple of years. And now here it is, it's supposed to be 6 weeks away and we haven't been able to start selling tickets yet. Nobody knows if it's going to happen. And really that's our biggest fundraiser to help us with legislative, sessions down the road. That's what funds us to get our foot in the door and to, really fight for the brewery. So I would say right now that's a scary part for the Guild, is knowing if we're going to have those funds come in to be able to do work in the future.
That is frightening. Sean, I know you're involved with your own Guild and you guys have figured out a very creative solution to work around that. Why don't you tell us about it?
Yeah, again, another testament to kind of our ability to work with our regulator here in Oklahoma and collaborate with them on some really kind of innovative stuff. So, I mean, the first thing we did is we, as a Guild, the first thing we did is we basically froze dues payments. Most of our breweries are on a quarterly payment structure. A lot of small breweries, lot under 500 barrels. And so, we froze dues payments and we talked to our lobbyist about deferring payments and other people that we had some liabilities to about deferring payments, and they were all really great. But much like Angie and the North Dakota Guild, one of our biggest fundraisers is a collaborative beer festival, the Oklahoma Craft Beer Festival. That's always the Saturday of American Craft Beer Week that we do in conjunction with Tapworks, one of the original kind of craft beer bars here in Oklahoma City. So that was scheduled to be May 16th. And then we have another festival. It's the Oklahoma Craft Beer Summit in August. Well, Tapworks came to us, so we came to them really, and we said, listen, we've got this creative solution with Able. Why don't you take our spot back in August and we'll take your spot in May. So on May 15th, on Friday night, we're going to have a virtual online craft beer festival, the Oklahoma Craft Beer Summit. And the Able Commission worked with us for a special order to allow us to take donated beer from the breweries in Oklahoma and national and regional breweries. And we're going to create essentially beer kits for the ticket holders for our summit. They're going to be able to go to a local brewery and pick up a beer kit. Let's say you buy a $40 ticket for general admission. You're going to get a box of probably 20 different beers that have been donated by local breweries. So you're going to have a night of entertainment, a night of education. We're going to have great panels with brewers from all over the country. Bart Watson just committed to be on a panel with us today. So we'll have an online presence and we're going to be able to drink together. We're hopefully, 1,000 people in Oklahoma. We're going to be able to get together and drink together and talk about beer and talk about the beer business. And that's going to really go a long way to satisfy our cash flow problems at the Craft Brewers Association. And I got to give a ton of credit to the Able Commission. Our regulators have been amazing, and regulators sometimes don't get the credit they deserve for being innovative and flexible. But ours here in Oklahoma have been really amazing and done a really great job making sure that the businesses that they impact have as many resources as they can legally allow for them.
That's
Angie,
awesome.
Angie, do you feel like the North Dakota Guild is going to have any shortfalls as far as funding goes?
Like I said, this is the biggest event that we put on. So yes, if this event does not go on, obviously we'll look at moving it back farther into the year, but you don't know what that looks like either. I mean, what are people's extra, their discretionary income looks like? Are people going to go out as much in festivals? I mean, if you're talking about limiting the amount of people together, I mean, when you're used to selling a couple hundred people there, are people going to come out? So yeah, that's definitely a worry for us. We don't know what that's going to look like.
Nick, I'm curious how Exile is looking at their portfolio now. Are there production shifts that you guys are making in order to meet changing demand at this moment?
Yeah, and so I kind of touched on this earlier. We are very, very committed to our core brands. They are our bread and butter, and it is everything about what Exile is. We do have some specialty series. We have a fruit and sour series. We have a high-end IPA series, and so those series are what we're really evaluating. We haven't canceled anything yet, but we are shifting maybe quantities, and we're also shifting, an uptick in how much package we're going to be delivering to our wholesalers. So as a whole, I think that the biggest takeaway that we've had is that what we are doing is working. I think the national trend and the national data suggests that there's been a return to flagship and a return to what's familiar. And, that has been something that we have been preaching for a long time. That is the essence of what we think that we are the best at. And so that's how we became, Iowa's top selling brand in the state, was through that type of business philosophy. And it's really paying off now, and our consumers are responding really well. So that's kind of how we've reevaluated and shift in demand.
Sean, Coop launched its seltzer not that long ago. What has it been like to have a new product launch in the market in such an unsettled time?
Well, I mean, it's not been fun, right? I mean, amongst the things that the forecasting has been almost impossible to do at this point. We put a lot of inventory in the distributor's warehouse, and we're moving through that. But I think about things like, there are a lot of people that may be watching from breweries and home that'll bristle when I say this, but I think about Walmart, for instance. Walmart made a big commitment to the only local seltzer in Oklahoma, and Walmart's resets were scheduled to happen, around March 15th, right? And we're just now getting around to Walmart resets in the middle of April, and so we lost a major, we lost our biggest retailer, essentially our biggest retail chain, and the commitment they were making for a month. Not a big deal in the big picture, like not so tragic, right, in the long run, but it just really messes with kind of everything that you expected and forecasted and hoped for out of a product launch. We were able to have launch parties on March 1st, but then March 11th, we start shutting things down, right? So all of the marketing that we had queued up, and we have some really great partners. I mean, I think about things like billboard campaigns in our markets that we were about to run to launch Will and Wiley. Those were supposed to start in the middle of April. We had to go back to all those vendors and partners and ask them to put those contracts on hold. And so, there's just a lot of moving parts to a product launch, and in some breweries and the way where they are in their business life cycles, they can kind of just put a beer out and say, hey, this new beer is out, and that meets their expectations. For us, we've set a different set of expectations for ourselves. When we put a product out into the market, we put a lot of energy and marketing power behind that product in the market. And it's a business model that's paid off for us. But having this happen in the middle of that is extremely disruptive to that product launch. But, you have to say that with a little grace and humility, because I'm on here with Angie, who's got 200 employees who are at home and questioning things. And so you have to have a little bit of perspective sometimes. And this isn't just happening to us.
Long term, do you think that'll change the way you plan for the future of future launches?
I don't know how you can. I don't know how you can be who we are and have the culture that we have in our organization and run at half speed because you're afraid of what's around the corner. It's just not our thinking. It's not our mentality. We're not stupid. We're not foolish. We do a lot of advanced planning. We put a lot of contingencies in place, but there's nobody in our business pump fakes. I mean, we go full bore. So I'm not sure that we change our mentality moving forward.
Well, and also speaking of launching a new product, do you think we'll ever go back to a time where we do in-person sampling?
Oh gosh, that's actually one of the things that I didn't even really talk about earlier. I think Nick probably can talk a lot to it too. We made a very unpopular move about 3 days before everybody got shut down, and we just said nobody's doing any sampling. And I had a couple of reps on my staff that had a lot of heartburn about that. They'd made commitments to retailers, and I understand those are their personal relationships, and they told those retailers that they were going to be there on that day, and they were going to be supporting their business by getting product, into the hands of consumers directly. And so I do think we're going to go back to it. I do think that there's going to be some normalization that happens down the line. When that is, I don't know when it's going to be. When customers are comfortable with it, we're going to be there, and we're going to be executing.
Nick, what about you guys? How much sampling does Exile do?
Yeah, we do a lot of in-store samplings at our grocery chains. It's our bread and butter for communicating, our core lineup to consumers who may not be exposed to it. Every single time that you're in a store, you have a chance to gain a new customer for life. So sampling is really, really important for us. And, kind of to Sean's point, like this timing couldn't have been worse. They were just getting ready to launch a seltzer brand. We just made or overhauled the recipe for our spring seasonal lemon trail, and so it's a drastically different beer from last year to this year. And so we were really relying on the sampling power to communicate the message that it's a whole different recipe. And we've had to find a little bit more creative ways to do that through shelf talkers and through other, social media campaigns. But the big part, actually getting the liquid to the customer at the point of sale, that was completely taken away from us right when we were launching that brand. So it's been an interesting problem to deal with.
Crazy. Now, not necessarily a new product launch, but Angie, you guys are in the middle of building a brand new restaurant, which is crazy. So, I mean, how has your timeline changed? And do you have any advice for business owners who are also in the middle of really big expansion projects?
Yeah, so we at the beginning, we've been working on a project for about a year and a half. It's called Slow Ride. It's a taco and tequila place, small, only about 50 seats. And we started construction. We're renovating, going into an older building that's been around for a long time. And we started construction at the end of January. Our goal was to open up May 1st. Kind of strange now that the governor has pushed us back until April 30th for us to come back. So possibly May 1st will be the opening of our other restaurants too. So once this first started, we put a kind of a skids on it and just said, let's give us 30 days to gather more information. We do plan on still continuing. We're already past that point, and we're in a community of about 15,000 people. And our goal as a hospitality group is to keep, bringing great products to our consumers here and being a part of the community. So we are going to discuss it again in our owners meeting this week and discuss when we think is appropriate for us to get them back in there. So really we're 6 weeks out. So as soon as we say go, we're 6 weeks out. And with all the unknown, having some time to gather some data was nice. And we'll probably do some things a little different. Our Outlaws, which is a steakhouse, we found right away when we went to only takeout and delivery that our pizza place and our burger place were way more popular. People don't spend as much on steaks when you're getting it to go as they do on a burger and pizza. So we'll definitely be looking at our menu options at our new taco and tequila place to make sure that they're to-go friendly and that the consumer can afford those in these troubling times. So.
Sean, Coop has been in the process of a major project for a number of years for a new home for your whole headquarters, basically, and production facility. What's the status of that, and how has COVID changed that?
Yeah, well, it certainly put a little bit of a stop on the momentum we had on that project. So for those that don't know, we are buying 80,000 square foot, 9 acres of land right next to the state capitol building from the state of Oklahoma that used to house the National Guard Armory. It's about an 80-year-old building. We helped get it on the Register of Historic Places. We've been working with our architects, our contractors, our consultants, getting close to closing the transaction on that real estate with the state. Very close, in fact. And about a month ago, obviously, a little bit before that, we really just had to put that whole project kind of on hold for a little while. And really that had a lot to do with banks and banking partners and whether or not they had the bandwidth to continue to kind of look at this project and think about funding this project with everything that was going on and all the uncertainty. So, it doesn't jeopardize the project really at all for us to just kind of put a stop on it right now and wait and see what the banking market is going to do and what debt's going to look like afterwards. And we're pretty hopeful that as part of additional stimulus packages that help the economy sort of get back and going whenever we all kind of do start ramping up again, that the debt markets and the credit markets will have some money pumped into those, and that we'll be able to go ahead and finish this project. We're pretty confident, quite frankly. I mean, we've lived through some cycles. We all lived through 2008, and projects got up and got going and got funded after 2008. They got funded after 9/11, and I think we're all confident that when the time is right, the place is right, that we're going to have banking partners and investors that are ready to make this happen for us.
We've got an audience question here for Nick. Do you feel like Exile has come together during this time? Has it made your work environment stronger?
Absolutely. You know, our team is really close. I always refer to them as the Exile family. We've come together in incredible ways, in ways that are kind of surprising to me. And so I think that it's been really special to be a part of it and just kind of see how everyone has kind of risen to the occasion, and it's really brought out the best in a lot of our team members. And so it's the silver lining is that now we're starting to figure out what one another is made of. And when you're thinking about planning your future, we think about things like territory expansions and where you want to go. You're really getting to figure out like who's cut out for it. And our team has grown much closer because of it. We're in constant contact with one another all day long. Even in terms of prepping for this phone call, our head brewer and our production manager, everybody was ready to jump on the phone call with me to talk through, all the changes that they've been experiencing and all the feelings and all the emotions, just so I knew what was going on. So just the fact that everybody is willing to help one another right now is really incredible.
So Nick, speaking of talking to the production manager, what has the production side been like? Are you guys having any interruptions in supply chain or ingredients or anything like that?
Yeah. So let's kind of just break this one apart. In terms of interruptions from day-to-day operations, absolutely, right? So we're still observing those social distancing guidelines within the brewery. So we've had to find ways to work around one another and work together while still maintaining 6 foot distance. As you can imagine, in a brewery, that's kind of difficult when you're cleaning tanks, when you're running packaging lines. And so they've had to find creative ways to work in that space to begin with. In terms of supply chain, yeah, there haven't been any disruptions in terms of non-deliveries, but for raw materials and for packaging materials and for ingredients, our head brewer and our production manager are reporting that there had been a few delays here and there, which hopefully those are mitigated, but those might become more frequent as there is an uptick in more breweries needing more packaging. We need more packaging as well. So to kind of offset that, what we've been doing is purchasing more raw materials to help us continue the flow through the 3-tier system and keep those shelves stocked up.
Angie, have you guys had a hard time finding, supplies, ingredients, food on your end?
Yeah, so it's kind of a joke between my husband and I. We went from 2 to 3 food trucks a week now down to 1. So you'll get an email and you're not getting half of it, and so then we're running product from one to the next to make sure that we're able to have food for that store. The other obstacle we're running into is to go items. To go boxes, pizza boxes. Everybody's gone to go, so having those items in stock has been difficult for us. Same thing. We do growlers and crawlers at some of our restaurants, and we ran out. Luckily we had some backups at one other place that we could take elsewhere, but we're sitting at one of our locations without any crawlers, so they have to get a growler instead of a crawler. So yeah, there's definitely been an obstacle there. I will say, getting in fresh produce has also been a problem for us too. So lettuce, romaine, things of that sort has been an issue for us. So just kind of navigating ways to work around that and to make sure we're getting a fresh product out to our guests.
I would never have thought about takeout containers, but that makes so much sense. We're writing a story a week or so ago, all the time runs together now, but about breweries creating hand sanitizer. So I had spoken with the CEO of Three Daughters down in Florida, and they were making sanitizer, but there's no cups anywhere or small bottles. So they were able to source urine sample cups, and that's what they're getting their sanitizer out into the world in, which innovation.
Make it work.
Exactly. Sean, are you guys having any issues?
We're dealing with issues as they arise. There are some, as an example, it's a double-edged sword, right? You're thankful that you have a product like F5, which is our flagship. We're thankful that we launched 12 packs a year and a half ago of 3-4 of our biggest brands. And so 12 packs have grown significantly for us in the last 4 weeks as customers are looking to make, some stock up buys of products that they're comfortable with. And so, that's all to say that we've really blown our forecast on 12-pack boxes out of the water. We usually are able to order and receive in, 30 days before we're about to run out of 12-pack boxes. And that got accelerated, but our supplier GPI stepped up and has really kind of pushed some things forward for us. Same thing on the can side. We're just using more cans now than we were forecasting. So it sounds like a good problem to have. I always say a good problem to have is still a problem. We can't go dark in the market. So Ball has really stepped up for us and has moved us up in the queue a little bit. And I can't help but think in times like this that, others are facing the same issues. They're on the package side, they're maybe up. And I wonder if they have the same leverage we have with the suppliers. And I wonder if a 5,000 barrel brewery has the same stroke at Ball or GPI that maybe we do as longtime customers. And so we're really fortunate that those folks have responded to us and have gotten us back in stock before we go dark in the market on a product. But certainly there have been some kind of almost sleepless nights from the procurement guys' side.
I'm sure that's got to be tough. Now, one thing that I don't know how much attention you guys were paying to it before, but e-commerce really took off. So Nick, how developed is the e-commerce channel for Exile?
Yeah, so right before this happened, we had just started getting some of those e-commerce projects off the ground in terms of making sure we had high resolution digital scans of every single one of our SKUs. But as far as, that being a fully developed channel in the state of Iowa, we were just starting to get some of those things off the ground. And so those projects for us have been, kind of put to the forefront in terms of, getting what we need to do a robust e-commerce business. Because not only are we starting to dabble in it, but I know that our grocery chains and some of our C-store chains are moving very heavily towards, their online sales programs or their in-app sales programs. And so that stuff is becoming more and more important to get to these, to these retailers and make sure that they can, virtually merchandise your brand the way that you want to present it.
Sean, what are you guys doing with e-com?
Unfortunately, we have some very restrictive laws around where transactions can take place. And so it's almost impossible to do e-commerce in Oklahoma. Direct shipments, almost impossible. Pick up curbside for grocery stores and liquor stores, available now. But a lot of those grocery chains and convenience chains didn't have the infrastructure built to really be able to respond to that right away. And certainly delivery is not good. Grocery stores and liquor stores, grocery stores can't really deliver, and third parties can't deliver for sure. So it's difficult here, and I don't think anybody was really ready for and had the infrastructure in place. We're starting to kind of put that in place, and so while nobody wants to encourage anybody to go anywhere that they're uncomfortable with, liquor stores and grocery stores are still open, and we're starting to see some softening in the last couple of weeks as people start to take more advantage of delivery and pick up curbside, especially. The impulse buys are starting to go away. And so you may know you want a handle of Tito's, but you didn't know you wanted a 12-pack of F5 until you saw it on the floor in some cases. And so we're starting to see a little bit of softening in the places that have curbside. I'll give you a specific example. We're down about 40% from week 2 of COVID to week 4 in COVID. We're down about 40% in our top 10 liquor store customers. And that's almost exclusively due to curbside. And again, I want to stress, I'm not asking people to go anywhere they're uncomfortable with, but that is a reality and that is having an impact.
And that curbside, was that allowed just temporarily right now, or is that a new development?
Yeah, it's allowed temporarily by the liquor regulators as a response to COVID.
We've got about 7 minutes left to go here. I'll remind everybody, if you have questions, feel free to text them in 617-336-8560, 617-336-8560. We will go lightning round with those if you send those in. I want to talk a little bit about the return of the on-premise and what that might look like. And I'm going to ask you, Angie, to start us off here. Does this change the way that you're going to look at, your businesses moving forward as far as spacing of tables, disposable menus? Will a return to the on-premise look different in North Dakota than it does in, say, New York City or Los Angeles or wherever?
I think it does. I mean, our job is to make sure that our employees and that our consumers are safe. And I think for all the information that we know right now, being in close quarters is definitely something that makes this virus transmittable. So I think when we are able to open up, having more distance, I'm envisioning a packed bar on a Friday night. You kind of taking that for granted right now. And I don't foresee that being, our go-to right away until people feel comfortable knowing where they stand. So yeah, we'll definitely be making measures with a little extra space, making sure that we're, possibly even using disposable menus so that way people feel safe. I think as restaurants are out and about and people are feeling comfortable, we've got to be a front of it that, hey, we know that this can get transmitted between person contact. So we have to do everything we can to make sure that that's not happening in our stores. So I think there's definitely going to be a shift in the way that we take care of our guests in the future.
Sean, you mentioned the Armory project. Does this change the blueprints for that project in the way, the spaces inside look?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I mean, we haven't really addressed that yet or had any sort of strategic discussions about that. I mean, we're really sort of responding to the bullets that are flying at us as they're flying at us right now. And so, right now, what I'm focused on is, I have a lot of empathy for Angie as a fellow brewer, and a lot of sympathy for the way that she really represents the way a lot of our customers feel, a lot of our partners feel. Their restaurants are closed, they're hurting, their people are out, and it's not going to pop back day one. It's just not going to pop back day one. And I hate to be negative about it, but like, you can't just go honk your horn at the Capitol and say turn on the economy and have it happen overnight. People are going to have to be confident to be able to go back in those spaces. And so what we're really trying to do is make sure that we're in a position where our sales reps and our team are continuing to partner with our on-premise accounts as they move towards a sort of, I think, a phased opening of different restaurants. And as their restaurants start to become full and people start to become confident about that movement. And we're not even touching on venues. My gosh, the number of music venues and sporting venues and things like that we move draft volume through. We have no idea when that comes back. We have no idea when people will gather again. But we're confident. I mean, we're very bullish on the future of on-premise. We think it's going to come back. We don't think it happens overnight, but we're going to be there to support that business when it comes online.
Nick, I've been to Exiles Brew Pub in Des Moines. It was packed. What's it going to look like when you guys can, start serving burgers and beers again?
It's a really good question. And I don't think that, as of right now, in this point in time, you can definitively say what that's going to look like. Certainly, we will do whatever we have to do to get our business back and also do it in a responsible manner. That, the safety of our staff and the safety of our customers is number one for sure. And one thing that I kind of want to touch on too, that, as we continue moving into the future and supporting our on-premise suppliers or our on-premise retailers, we do have very, very long-lasting, long-term, great relationships with on-premise. We will be supporting them as much as possible. And one of the things that I'm kind of curious to see how it shakes out is, on-premise buyers and their habits, how those are going to change, especially with things like high-end beer. And I know I've been beating this point to death, and but that's one of the things that we're positioned to take advantage of because, we have the most competitive pricing in the state for our core flagship brands. And so, we are working our way through what that's going to look like as much as possible. We think we have a good plan put in place, and we think that our business philosophy positions us to, really, take advantage of that, when we come back alive. But who knows? I mean, we kind of have built out several different plans for the future, best case scenario, worst case scenario, and then somewhere in between. Right now, there's just so many unknowns that you can't definitively say.
So we're almost out of time, 2 minutes left. Last question, we'll throw it to everybody one at a time. But what have you learned along the way? And is there anything that you can share with other companies? Any innovations or tweaks to your business or others that you've seen or made? What do you guys think? Angie, let's start with you.
We started delivery. That wasn't something that we were a part of before, and that's definitely been a big thing for us. I can see us continuing that. I definitely think, we're in Western North Dakota where oil does fluctuate, the price of oil. So we have seen influx of people before and the loss of people before too, leaving our community. So I think just adapting, that's all you can do, is you have to figure out what your consumer is looking for and be able to give them that. And it'll be interesting to see what happens here in the summer, for the rest of the summer and the rest of the year, but just make changes as we have and make sure our employees and our consumers are taken care of.
Awesome. Sean, how about Coop?
Yeah, I think the thing that we've learned that has been, I think, a nice experience in tough times is that if you invest in your people and you bring good people and you treat them well, and they are our family, our colleagues are our family. If you do that and it's part of your culture, they will do what they need to do. They will share sacrifice to get the company through it. And that's what our people have done. We miss each other desperately, but we pull together and we're going to make it through this.
Great. Nick, does all that sound familiar? I know you talked about the Exile fam quite a bit.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And here's what I kind of just scratched out on my paper here is what works for us and kind of what we learned along the way. And a lot of these lessons have come, pre-COVID as well. But my big advice to people is to treat your distributors like business partners. Those relationships are so important, and taking care of and properly managing, that area of the supply chain is really important. Have a tangible ROI on marketing spends. Build cash reserve, have a conservative approach to debt. And the other thing that that we are really, really, really adamant about is being data driven and being analytical and efficient. And so that's kind of what works for us, and we are just continuing to double down on those business principles.
Fantastic advice.
That's all the time we have. We actually hit I think perfect 60 minutes. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I want to thank these guys, Nick, Angie, Sean.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Jess, thank you for your help. Thanks to Josh, who's running AV on the back end. Thanks again, everyone. We're going to try and do this more often, I think next Thursday. So look for announcements coming on that soon, and we will see you then. Cheers.
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 See you guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.
Cheers.